early in the you ask in relation to Bouazizi and the many figures who echo across the introduction how we see and name actions that bring death or injury to the very person performing them, and whether such acts belong to the margins of the political or command an inherent politicality, I guess you could say. How did those questions push you away from the dominant vocabulary through which self-directed violence is usually interpreted?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I wanted to understand what different forms of self directed violence had in common with one another than what they had that was different. When you look at that field from the lens of, say, suicide, it's like you separate those acts that ended up in the actor's death from all other forms of action such as bodily injury or radical self-endangerment. There's a thick line that you draw between those forms of action. And for me, there was something about the intensified use of the body, intensified reliance on the body, and the kind of blurring of, intentionality where you are doing something, but at the same time there is an excess of your body in that action that, in a sense, overtakes any kind of rational or instrumental account of what you are doing to your body or with your body. So I wanted to capture that corporeality, that visceral dimension, and to put these forms of action on a kind of continuum, as it were, rather than distinctive sets that had very little to do with one another. And in order to do that, I had to shift the register on which I was looking at these acts, not in terms of like what the actor wanted to do, intended to achieve, and did or did not achieve, but rather what kind of reliance on the body can we see here? How does that trouble questions of intentionality, the binary between what is reflective, what is pre-reflective, what is instrumental, what is non-instrumental? So those were like the limit forms of bodily action was like what I was really interested in, and the thread that I pursued. And that's how I ended up with the concept of disembodiment, which really, instead of something like suicide or self immolation or self starvation, focuses on the body as a common repertoire and the disembodiment or the forfeiture of the body, forfeiture of the self through the body to indicate a whole range of actions that, in fact, come under the rubric of that term, as I try to conceptualize it in the book. And even though I started from actions that were focused on self-directed violence, I ended up opening up that category to a lot of different forms of bodily agency, including mass fainting episodes, spirit possession. I mean, these are the ways in which they appear in other discourses like anthropology, for example, to look at ways in which the body erupts, so to speak, whether or not the agents may want it or plan it. So laughing and crying and vertigo, like these forms of bodily reaction to certain crisis situations too, I included as forms of bodily agency that need to be taken into account when one is looking at the whole realm of actions that one performs.